Hi, my name is Deborah C. Owen from YouCanRaiseGreatKids.com, publisher of Great Kid Magazine, and the author of Social Media Fascination, a #1 Amazon best-selling book. I'm really glad that you're here today because I know many parents really struggle with how to deal with technology and their kids. And as far as I can tell, there are pretty much three major areas of concern that parents have. First of all, they're concerned that their kids are going to be involved in some sort of bullying or harassment through technology. Another one is they're afraid that their kids may be stalked by somebody whose intentions are less than desirable. And third, they're also afraid that kids may actually get in trouble with the law for doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, like sexting. So what I'm going to do for you today is we're going to talk about each of these issues, and we're going to really dive into some practical strategies and tips that you can use and new ways of perhaps framing the issues so that you can have great conversations with your kids about these difficult issues. So let's dive right into it immediately, how to deal with some of these issues and measures that parents can take right away. So the struggle is between keeping kids safe and respecting their privacy and their individuality. And I really see it as a balance. And you'll see as I go through my recommendations that there is a balance that you need to strike between keeping kids safe and also recognizing that you are the leader in your family. A servant leader from my point of view, but still the leader. And there are some things that you need to do that will maybe kind of cross the boundary in some people's points of view, but this is for you to decide what's right for you and your family, and I'll just give you my recommendations. So, first of all, we're going to talk about having a conversation with your children, or with your child. Let's talk about one child to start with, okay? We want to make sure that they know of the dangers of something like sexting. Let's dive right into the most controversial and difficult issue of all, is sexting, right? Using those cell phones to send explicit photographs or messages or anything else that is not really something that we want for our children to be doing. We don't want them to be engaged in that. And in many states, your kids need to understand that it can be seen as an issue of child pornography and can come up against legal issues. They need to know that. It's not true in all states, but it could be a misdemeanor in some states. But in some states, it is an issue with the law. Another issue is privacy concerns. Kids need to understand that if people are just sending out these rather pornographic pictures, or even mildly pornographic pictures, that is an issue of privacy. Those pictures can be sent out easily from one kid to another. And if your child is not really engaging in it, him or herself, but is actually receiving those pictures from someone else, then that's something that you will want to discuss with them too. The long and the short of it is, kids need to understand that friendships come and go, and it's very difficult, honestly, to trust a 14, 15, 16-year-old. Hopefully when they become consenting adults later on, that's something that you can discuss with them. Put the whole idea of sexting into a broader context of family sex education, and there are consenting adults who engage in this, and that is their right and their privilege. It's not something that we want to encourage our children to do because we don't feel, generally speaking, that most of them are ready to engage in any kind of sexual practice when they're that young. They're not consenting adults yet. So that's why this is the best to be put into that particular context. The other thing about it is they have to recognize that they need to share with their friends and just be open and honest with their friends, and but not really trust them in terms of sharing these sorts of pictures. And kids struggle with that because they think their best friend is going to be their best friend forever, right? But we know from our own vast experience that we're not still in touch with most of our junior high friends. And so even though it seems like it's the end of the world or the most important person in the world at that point in time, they're not necessarily somebody that we're going to stay in touch with forever. And we have to really be careful about how vulnerable we want to be to those friends at that point in our lives. All right, so another thing that I would encourage you to do is not get into any kind of blaming or pointing fingers I would encourage you instead to do problem solving. So let me give you an example. There's a woman I've heard of who found that her perfectly normal and rational 15-year-old son, when he connected his phone to the computer, all of a sudden there were just a couple of rather pornographic pictures that were showing up when she went into his file, and he didn't even realize that she had done this. And so rather than freaking out, what she did was she engaged a conversation with him so that she was able to look at it kind of in a broader sense. She didn't accuse and she didn't blame. She just asked him, you know, Joe, I hear that sexting is something that's going on in schools these days. Is that something that you and your friends might be engaging in? You know, what can you tell me about that? What's happening at your school? And so they had an intelligent conversation about it without any freaking out involved. And she let him know, without telling him that she had discovered these pictures on her computer, she let him know that in their state these were legally child pornography, and that anybody who was found to have these pictures in their possession would be in trouble with the law if it were found out. And he had no idea. So she wasn't quite sure what to do. She let it go. They had a little more conversation about it. And then a day or two later, when she was trying to figure out what to do, she went to the computer and found that they were gone. And as far as she knew, he was never engaged in anything else like that again. She found out later that somebody had sent them to him. And so he was trying to figure out, what do I do with these pictures that somebody has sent to me? So this is what you want to do, is make sure that there's no accusing, no blaming, no freaking out, just rational, calm conversations if you're confronted with this and you discover that your child has these pictures. And don't just automatically make assumptions. Try to work through the issues with them and problem solve, and get them to help you try to figure out, or help them figure out, what are they going to do about these issues. And if you can do it without even letting them know that you know, all the better, right? So another thing that's really important to talk to kids about when it comes to technology is that it's so easy to hide behind our gadgets. Think about when you're driving your car and there's the road rage that we hear about. It's so easy to get angry and upset because you've got these walls of the car around you, right? It's the same thing when it comes to our gadgets and the internet. The cell phone, we hide behind the cell phone, or we hide behind the computer. And there are many, many kids who create this completely different persona, this other identity, because they can feel like they can hide behind the relative anonymity or how difficult it is to actually cross that divide on the internet or on the cell phone waves. And what we need to do is get to the deeper issue. If you find that your child has created a completely different persona online, what you need to do is find out, why are they not feeling connected and validated and important in their own lives? And then try to figure out, what can I do as a parent to connect with them more right here in our family? What can I do as a parent to encourage them to find other ways to connect in a healthy way, so that they don't feel the need for validation in this other way that creates all these complex issues, and again makes them more susceptible to stalkers who are looking for people online who have a certain type of personality. And so this is a really important issue that you need to dive into deeply as a parent. What need is not being met if my child is creating this other identity? And that's something I can help you with if you're interested. Let's talk a little bit more about what do we do about monitoring our kids? And this is where some people may disagree with me, and that's totally fine. Like I said at the beginning, you need to figure out what works for you and for your family. My take on it is there needs to be a balance. So here's the thing. If your child were writing a journal and the journal were in his or her room, off limits. That's their stuff. That's her private stuff. However, if your child has secret stuff that's on equipment that you have paid for, the internet and the cell phone, and that's stuff that can get out so easily, you owe it to your child to maintain some vigilance over what is going on in that arena. Okay, you've paid for it and you're protecting your child. I think those are important. That's really different than a journal that's hiding in your child's drawer in their bedroom. It just is. It's different. So what I would recommend is that you let your child know that periodically, kind of like when they do drug testing in professional sports, every once in a while you might go in and check. And just to make sure that they're safe and that they're not having anybody who's harassing them, pose it in a sense that you are taking care of them in your role as their protector. And if you can let them know that, and let them know that you want them to grow and learn how to use social media and cell phones in a responsible and adult way, in an age-appropriate way as they're heading toward adulthood, that this is your way of making sure that they are growing and learning in a proper way and that they're safe. So communicate this issue with them. Let them know if they want to be able to be using social media, that they really need to be doing it in a safe manner. I have a whole book, Social Media Fascination, that's all about how to help kids use social media in a really fun and exciting way. I encourage you to check it out. I'm not going to go into it in detail right here. So back to monitoring. You can contact your phone company, and you can check the texts that come and go on the cell phones that are under your plan. And you also can set up parental controls on your computer so that they can't access certain sites at certain times of the day, for instance, if you need them to focus on homework instead of Facebook or whatever the latest and greatest social media platform might be. By the time you watch this video, because it's probably going to be different next week, right? So they should share their passwords with you. That's pretty standard procedure. And you do want to check with them on things occasionally. So again, it's all about protecting them and keeping them safe, because anything that's on a computer is fair game. It can be hacked, it can be shared, it can be spread. It's very different than a journal that's hiding in a drawer in their bedroom. All right. It really comes down to teaching your children your values, both online and offline. So what kind of person do you want your child to grow up to become? A caring, thoughtful, empathetic, giving person, right? And so these are the traits that we want them to have when they meet people face to face. We want them to have these traits when they're meeting people online as well. And so you need to model that for them. You need to show them how it's done. You need to discuss what that looks like when they're online. They need to know what it looks like. They don't know. Remember the old days when we used to learn how to write formal letters in 3rd and 4th grade? Well, they need to learn how to write a formal email. Never mind. Email is not dead. It's going to be around for a while at least, okay? They need to learn how to write a formal email. They need to know how to engage with an adult on social media, because it's going to be important for their jobs someday. Maybe even next year. You know, if you've got a 16-year-old who's looking for a part-time job next year or even this year, social media might be part of his or her job. They need to know how to engage with adults on social media in an appropriate and respectful way. And that's your job, is to teach them, because they're not learning it in school. So it's your job to teach them. Explain, of course, to them how today's poor choices will follow them around. So if they post anything that's not appropriate, that's not friendly, that's not caring and thoughtful, it's probably going to come back to bite them. And my rule of thumb is, if I wouldn't want my grandmother reading it, I don't post it. And your kids need to understand that too. Give them that rule and ask them, is this something that your grandma would like to read? If it's not, don't post it. And it comes back to, again, just encouraging them to learn what your own family values are. Have you ever sat down and thought about what your family values are? I would encourage you, and this is a whole other subject, in a family meeting, to come up with what your family values are. And once you have them, then once you have a list, and you can get a list of ideas on, just go to Google and search for family values or core values or something like that. You'll get tons and tons of ideas. Narrow them down to, start with maybe 10, and then narrow them down even further to 5 or 6 that your family believes in completely. Post them on the refrigerator, and then all of your interactions with each other and with people you meet out in the world, both personally and online, those are your family values, and they should be guiding how you treat each other and how you treat everybody else that you meet. So, what are your family values? Teach them to your kids, online and offline. Teach kids boundaries also. There need to be boundaries between kids and adults. Maybe that's their coach, maybe that's their teacher or their neighbor. All right, what are the boundaries? Talk about these things. Kind of in a generic way. A lot of kids don't really want to get into too many specifics, but especially boys. Sorry to say, I have 2 boys and a girl. I know these things. So don't be afraid to talk to them in a generic way about what boundaries are between kids and adults, between, their brothers and sisters, and even between their friends. What are the boundaries? What do they feel comfortable with? What is acceptable to them? What makes sense? Talk through these things. Again, I'd love to have you either do this in a family meeting or in real one-on-one connection time, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. All right, some best practices. Technology, number 1, technology. I recommend that all the phones stay in the kitchen overnight, including yours. I know a lot of people use them as alarm clocks. Go get an alarm clock. You know what? It's better for you not to be doing screens before you go to sleep anyway. It helps you sleep better. There are all kinds of studies on the internet. I'm not going to get into the biology of it right now. But I recommend that all phones be charged in the kitchen overnight so that kids don't have them under their pillows and are waking each other up at 2 in the morning. And they do that. I've seen it happen. We had to go through that with one of our kids. And we had to figure out how to help this child move away from that because it was impeding sleep and success in school and was creating far more drama than there needed to be. So we changed our pattern, and you can too. And if you've been letting your child take their cell phone to bed at night or in their room at night, you can say, all right, new family rule, this is why, and this is how we're going to help each other learn to do this new rule, and even I, the parent, am going to charge my phone in the kitchen overnight, not bringing it up to my room. So that's the first one. Create tech-free times and zones. So dinner table, tech-free. If you have to put the phones somewhere else, or if you have to turn them all off and stick them in the middle of the table so that everybody can see that no one's like sneaking underneath the table. Tech-free zone, tech-free time, find those times and periods. And also make sure that you have time to connect with your kids on a regular basis without any technology around. Put your phone away, turn it off, leave it somewhere else. Just focus on your kid. I promise that will make a huge difference in your relationship in so many different ways. Number 2, so number 1 was technology. Number 2, empathy. Teach empathy. How do we teach empathy? Well, first of all, discuss what you see around you when you go out to the store or to the library, or you're getting gas for your car. What people do you see? How do you see them treating each other? Talk out loud about that. Say, for instance, I really liked how that young man helped the older woman cross the street. What do you think about that? Or, boy, that man was really, really pushy in the line today. What did you think about that? How did that make you feel? Those are the kinds of things that you want to do. Just in everyday situations, pull up what you see and observe people doing to and for each other, and ask your kids what they think. Begin to let them notice, help them notice, and then they'll begin to recognize what they're doing or not doing for themselves. Help them find commonalities between themselves and others. If they can find things that are similar, and embrace when things are different, and not say, oh, that's them, we're us. Get rid of the them and the us. Embrace the commonalities. Help them find the things that are similar between themselves and the other people that they meet. It's easier to feel empathy for someone who has something that's similar to you. Read books together. Read books. Watch movies together. Ask them what they think about what's going on. Who are the characters? What are the things that the characters are thinking and feeling? How do people treat them? Read news articles together, or watch the news together, or something like that. And if there's some major catastrophe around the world, ask them how the families might feel. Ask them if there's something that we can do together to support those people who are really struggling. Ask them these questions. Get them to look outside themselves. It's totally age appropriate to be self-centered when you're a kid. It just is. The kids who are not self-centered, honestly, are fewer and farther than between than I think most of us would like them to be. But this is a really important way for you to teach kids empathy, is to help them look beyond themselves. Help them embrace and understand differences. Help them take action whenever they can. Whenever they can take an action to help somebody, teach them how to take that action. It can be something small like comforting a friend who's sad, or reaching out to somebody who's lonely, or offering to get together with somebody who's new at school or in the neighborhood. Or it could be something bigger. Maybe it's something that you do together as a family on a maybe a bi-weekly basis, a soup kitchen where you serve together, or whatever it might be. Buying holiday gifts, for certain organizations in town. So if you can help your children begin to have empathy for other people, they will be safer on social media. Right? These are just these are basic values. If they're in any part of their life, they're in all parts of their lives. Number 3, spend connected, intimate time with your child. Read a book together. Make sure that you plan every week or maybe every other week, depending on how many kids you have. I know really big families of 5 and 6 kids, every week might be a lot. But as much as you can, try to spend individual time with each of your children. We've gotten into the habit, my husband and I, of one of us or maybe both of us will take one child out for breakfast or one child out for lunch and just spend time together, or even just invite them to go run errands at the store with you. But make sure it's something that they enjoy doing too. It's important that they enjoy it. Don't drag them with you. If they hate going to the hardware store, don't drag them to the hardware store and say, I did it. I spent my individual time with my kid this week. That doesn't count. If they like the hardware store, great. If they don't, that doesn't count. They need to have some input on what this special, intimate, one-on-one or maybe two-on-one time is going to be, so that they feel special and valued and validated, like we were saying before. Number 4, be a good role model for your kids. So they watch everything you do, they hear everything you say. If you do not treat people with respect, either personally or online, they catch it. It's contagious, and that's the way they will begin to treat people as well. So make sure that you are a good role model, and that can include being giving and doing service and showing empathy and all of the things that we were just talking about. Demonstrate also that you take good care of yourself, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And when you take good care of yourself, you feel good about yourself, you are happier, you have more to give. And when you have more to give, you will be safer and nicer on social media. This is just like a big cycle. Number 5, teach your kids about responsibility. Everybody in the family has chores. You can rotate the chores, but again, I say have a family meeting, figure out what the chore schedule is, who's going to do what. You're all in this together, you're a team, and make sure that they follow through on doing some chores. Believe me, I know, I've done this before. I've said it's just easier to do it myself than to try to cajole the kids into doing it. That doesn't work to teach them anything. Figure out what they can do and teach them how to do it in a way that is acceptable to you. And remember, as long as they're doing it, it's better than not doing it, even if it's not done as well as you want it. And that's a good tip for your spouse too. If you want somebody else to do some things, even if it's not done the way you want it, at least they're doing it. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to end up doing everything. And who wants to do everything, right? You want to be able to share the joy of responsibility and taking care of the house and taking care of each other. And so that's an important thing to teach your kids as well. And then also teach them about gratitude. This is so important. People who are grateful in all aspects of their lives are just generally happier, and they're kinder, and they're much less likely to get themselves into trouble. Teach your kids gratitude. We did for a long time. When we would put our kids to bed when they were younger, we would go in and say prayers with them at night, and we would always say to them, what's something that you're really happy about? What is something really good that happened today? What are you grateful for? And I'd like to think that it helped them become the generally happy and well-adjusted young adults that they are right now. So gratitude is a huge part of being a happy, content, contributing person and member of society. And number 7, teach them how to manage their emotions, starting by managing your own emotions. Seriously, on social media or an email or something like that, if somebody says something, that they send you something that makes you angry or that's hurtful, your immediate reaction is to send something right back. And that's totally understandable, but it's often not the best reaction. It's much better to calm yourself down. This is called managing your emotions, okay? Calm yourself down. Think through some things for a while. Don't automatically reply. Don't automatically send something back. And then you can talk to the person if you need to in order to try to work things out. And this is important for your kids to learn this too. Though you model this for them. Talk about sometimes when you've struggled, maybe not too many details, it depends on what their age is and what the issue is, but talk to them about when you've struggled and you've had to manage your emotions in order to be a calm, rational person. So it all starts with managing our emotions. This is the number one thing in order to connect with our kids. And if we're not connected with our kids, then we can't help them learn how to use technology safely. So this is all just, it's a big cycle, as I said. Another part of this, too, is in terms of your relationship with your kids. It needs to be focused on, as much as possible, collaboration. Again, you're the servant leader. There's certain things that you do need to make decisions on. But as much as possible, include your children, even when they're very young. Include your children in how the family is going to run, in terms of what your values are, in terms of who is going to take responsibility for this, that, or the other thing, in terms of how you treat each other, and have them come up with ways that make sense for them, that make sense for your family, and let them take responsibility. If they grow up taking responsibility for being caring for each other, for showing empathy for each other, they're going to be much safer on the internet, much safer with their cell phone use. And if you have a teenager and you're saying, oh, it's too late, it's never too late. Start by controlling your own emotions, and by that you will then be able to teach your kids to control theirs. Second, connect. So many ways to connect with your kid. Find the ways that they are comfortable with and that they are willing to accept. Even a teenager will accept connections from you. You just need to find the right way to do it. I can help you with that. And the third part of it is go ahead and be that servant leader. Conduct them. So I've got my 3 C's: control, connect, and conduct. Okay, conduct them by coaching them from childhood to adulthood. And this is how we can keep them safe as they use technology. It's all about the relationships that we have with our kids. And if you would like to learn more about it, I invite you to contact me at my website, youcanraisegreatkids.com. There's a contact page there. And I would love to be able to talk to you some more about this. And I hope that this has been really helpful for you. If you have questions, if you need help to figure out how am I going to do this with my kid, you don't know my kid, right? Well, I know kids. Spent many years as a teacher in public schools, mostly at the high school level. I know kids, so I can help you. So please reach out to me at youcanraisegreatkids.com, and I will look forward to hearing from you soon. If you have stories of success to share with me, I would love to hear those as well. So please reach out to me, and I'll look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks so much.